Good morning, gentlemen. It's lovely to be here talking to you. What I wanted us to have a look at today is alongside the Gothic project, which you should have been doing by yourselves. I thought it'd be really useful for us to have a little think about how we structure our creative writing and how we can use sentence variety to improve it. So that's what we're going to be having a little bit of a think about this morning. Okay, exactly as we would do in lesson, we're going to start off with a little quick quiz. So there are just 4 questions there on the PowerPoint. What I want you to do is pause your video here and have a go at those 4 questions for me. If you're not sure, don't worry, just have a guess. You've been off a long time. Hopefully you've been doing something, but those brains might be a little bit rusty. Okay, have a go, pause it now. Okay, gents, on the screen now you should be able to see the answers, all right? So the 2 reasons that we use apostrophes are for omission, where we're missing out letters. So for example, in between the I and the M of I'm, or in don't, between the N and the T to show that the O's missing. Okay, so omission for when we're missing out letters, and possession to show that something belongs to somebody. So Mrs. Spur's bag would have an apostrophe between the R and the S to show that the bag belonged to me. Okay, so omission and possession are the 2 reasons that we use apostrophes. Synonyms are words that have similar meanings. And they're important because they make our creative writing much more exciting, more vibrant, more engaging for the reader. So rather than saying, I felt scared 5 different times throughout the same paragraph, we might experiment with saying we felt horrified or petrified or terrified, okay? So just keeps our reader that much more engaged. Number 3, the difference between a simile and a metaphor. A simile is a comparison that uses the words like or as. So the doctor was like a brave warrior, for example. So we've used the word like. Now, if we were talking about a metaphor, we would be describing the doctor as a brave warrior. The doctor was a brave warrior. Okay, so metaphor, we say something is something else. A simile, we say something is like something else. Okay, so for number 4, correcting our sentences, we were missing the apostrophe in the first one, and we were also missing the full stop on the end, okay? So we should have had an apostrophe and a full stop in number 1. Number 2, we done a YouTube video yesterday. No. Okay, we is plural, so you're going to have to use did. We did a YouTube video yesterday, and that also needed a full stop as well. Number 3, lots of mistakes in here. Number 3, it's impressive how quickly he ran home. So we were missing an apostrophe. Quick should have been quickly. Run should have been ran. And you should have had a full stop at the end of home as well. Okay? Hopefully you got some of those right. Don't worry if you didn't. Copy down the right answers if you got them wrong. Okay. What we're going to look at this morning is a particular type of sentence variety, all right? And we call them bang sentences. So we're going to look at this example here. It just says, I'm sick of it all. Okay? Fairly basic statement. It's just a short sentence by itself. It's an interesting idea. It does show an awareness for how a character might be feeling, but by itself, it doesn't have much of an impact. We need to find a way that we can make it more powerful. So we can develop that sentence and we can make it into a bang sentence. Look at the example, I'm sick of it all, colon. Sick of the mysterious noises, sick of the open doors, and most of all, sick of the sense of her evil presence. All right, obviously that sentence has a really gothic feel about it. But what it does also have, it has a short sentence followed by a colon, which is sophisticated punctuation. All right, then we have repetition and a list of 3. So we've taken the word sick out of the initial short sentence, repeated it 3 times in 3 different things that we might be sick of. Okay, sick of the mysterious noises, comma, sick of the open doors, and most of all, comma, sick of the sense of her evil presence. Okay, so you can see that it's got lots of different things going on in that sentence, and it's much more developed than our really straightforward first example. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to have a go at writing some bang sentences of your own, okay? There are 3 openings on the screen in front of you. I'm terrified by this house, all right? So that's the first opening. So the first thing that you need to do with that one is think about the word that you're going to repeat, okay? The obvious example is probably terrified, all right? So then you're going to list 3 different things that you're terrified of. I was tired of the task before me, all right? Think again, which word are you going to repeat? Think about what your list of 3 might be. I turned and saw her. Now that one's a little bit harder. Think really carefully there about what word you're going to choose to repeat in your list of 3. So pause your video now and have a go at writing, extending those sentences and making them into bang sentences. If you're not sure, look back at the previous slide or rewind your video a little bit, and have a look at those examples. Okay, your bang sentences might look a little bit like this. I'm terrified by this house. Terrified of the bangs, terrified of the creaking doors, but most of all, terrified of the eerie silence. Okay, so you've got interesting vocab in there as well, but you've got 3 terrifieds and 3 different aspects. Okay, let's have a look at the second one. I was tired of the task before me, tired of feeling helpless, tired of doing it all on my own, but most of all, tired of feeling like a failure. Okay, so it just follows the same simple structure right the way through, but it has much more impact. Now this one, the last one was a little bit harder. I chose to repeat the word her, but actually you could have repeated turned, you could have repeated saw, okay? But I used her. I turned and saw her. Her blazing eyes, her cruel smile, but worst of all, her grasping fingers. So if you have a look, it's got all those elements that we talked about. It's got a short sentence and a colon at the beginning underlined, as you can see. It's got the repetition of her 3 times, and it's got that list of 3 of blazing eyes, cruel smile, and grasping fingers. Okay, so make sure that your own bang sentences have those elements as well. And a little top tip that I want you to do, all of you to just do now, is in a second you're going to pause your video and I want you to take off the ending that you put on, and the short sentence obviously should still make sense by itself. That's a way, when you start writing your own, that's a way that you can check that you've written a proper bang sentence, because the bit before the colon needs to make sense by itself. Okay, gentlemen, we've done a little bit of sentence work. We're going to do a little bit of vocabulary building now. Okay, so what I would like you to do, there are 10 words on your screen now. Desolate, macabre, gaunt, melancholy, secluded, furtively, tempest, obscured, vulnerable and looming. Okay, all of those are fairly gothic themed words. What I want you to do, pause your video again now. We're going to do another little activity. You can either use the internet or you can use an actual real life dictionary if you have one in your house, and look up the meanings and jot down the meanings of those words. Okay, also as a little challenge, see if you can add 3 more words of your own that fit in with that gothic theme that we've been thinking about. All right, so look up and write down the definitions of those 10 and see if you can add 3 more of your own. Pause your video now. Okay, I'm presuming that your definitions should look a little bit like this, so let's just check them really quickly. Desolate means uninhabited, so bleak and empty. Often it's used to describe like sweeping broad landscapes like fields or moors or places that are sort of out and by themselves. Macabre means disturbing because it reminds us of death in some way. So it's often talked about like macabre spectacles of skeletons and ghosts and things like that. Okay, gaunt means lean and haggard, so really skinny, so skinny that you look unwell or like you've been suffering, etc. Okay, melancholy, a feeling of thoughtful sadness. Secluded is a place that's not visited or seen by many people, all right? So that can be a really nice thing, a secluded, quiet, calm place, but often as well, that can be an unnerving thing if somewhere's secluded because you're by yourself. Furtively means in a way that attempts to avoid notice. So if you're doing something furtively, you're trying to be a little bit sneaky and maybe a little bit secretive. Okay, a tempest is a raging storm, so it violent wind and rain. Obscured means hidden from view. Vulnerable means that we're exposed to possibly being attacked or being harmed. And looming means something appears large and threatening. Okay, so those are the definitions that you should have written, or something very similar. Now, the reason that we're doing this vocab building is that hopefully you'll be able to use some of that vocab in the piece of writing that we're going to lead up to. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a think about the elements of Gothic literature. Now, you've done lots, well, you probably have done lots of work on the Gothic already. So we're just going to think about some elements that we could include in our writing. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to choose a number from 1 to 5 in your head right now. You should have a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay, if you chose number 1, the character or the perspective that you're going to write from is a young orphan. If you chose a number 2, you are going to be a retired soldier. If you are number 3, you are going to be a disillusioned priest. Okay, so a priest who's questioning why he's even in the life anymore. Maybe a priest who's looking for some answers. Number 4, you are an escaped prisoner, all right? Number 5, you are a grieving husband, all right? So somebody who's lost his wife. So with each of those characters comes certain emotions. So you might want to jot down vocabulary that you would be thinking about using for however they might be feeling, okay? I want you to do the same again. Pick a number in your head from 1 to 5. Okay, you should have a number. What you have chosen is a type of weather or a time period. Okay, so if you were number 1, your piece of writing is going to be set in a thunderstorm. If you were number 2, your writing is going to be set just before dawn, all right? So the time just before sunrise, right at the end of the night, all right? If you were number 3, you are going to be writing in snow. If you are number 4, your piece of writing is going to be set for an old cliche at midnight. And if you chose number 5, your character is going to be surviving the driving wind and rain. Okay, so you might have an escaped prisoner trudging through the snow. They might be the 2 combinations that you've picked. So whichever ones you've picked will create a different mood and will create a different atmosphere. So start to think about how a young orphan might feel in the driving wind and rain, or how might a grieving husband feel just before dawn. So whatever your combination is, think carefully about what impact that's going to have. I want you to do the same again. Pick a number from 1 to 5. Okay, and what you've chosen this time is some type of object that might feature in your writing. Now, this one's a stretch. This one's a little bit of a challenge. It doesn't have to feature heavily in your writing because we're not going to write a full story. We're not writing a novel, okay? But if there's a way that you could include whichever number you picked, so if you were number 1, it would be a handwritten note. If you were number 2, it would be a half-destroyed map. If you were number 3, it would be a rusty key. Number 4, an old photograph. Or number 5, a battered locket. Okay, so number 3 is your stretching challenge if you can include your object in the piece of writing that we're going to think about. But the characters and the weather and time will help you to set the mood for whichever you're going to be doing. So make sure you write down the elements that you've picked. So it might be an escaped prisoner in a thunderstorm and a rusty key. Okay, so they might be the 3 elements that you're going to try and combine together to make a piece of writing. So make sure you've got those jotted down. Okay, now you may well have used this structure in lessons. It's really useful to recap it again. Okay, that's the picture there that we're going to be thinking about. So look at it carefully. It looks like obviously a very old imposing building. You've got some bats, it looks like, flying up. You've got these dead trees in the foreground. It does look derelict. It does look isolated. Okay, a lot of the windows are empty, as in so obviously it's been neglected, but it once was obviously quite a grand building. All right, it's big, it's quite imposing. Okay, so what you need to be thinking about first of all is what your character might have been doing there. All right, why might a grieving husband be there in front of that building? What might that building be? Okay, so let your character determine what that setting means for your character. Okay, so it might be a hospital for some reason. It could be, for the orphan, it might be the orphanage they grew up in or they've escaped from. Okay, for a disillusioned priest, it might be the first place he ever did an exorcism or something along those lines. Okay, so if you have a look on the right hand side of your screen, you've got the 4 paragraphs that we're going to be aiming for in our writing. Okay, we're going to think about, in our first paragraph, we're going to use our thoughts and feelings. Why are you there and how are you feeling? Okay, you are not going to say, I am an escaped prisoner and I feel nervous that I might be caught. Okay, but you might say, I don't know how much longer I can make it like this. I wonder if they've missed me yet. So rather than telling me who you are, you're suggesting to me who you are. Give me hints and give me clues. Okay, in the second paragraph, you're going to describe the weather and the broad landscape, all right? So you're going to set the tone. You're going to describe the background, the panorama, what's around you. So that's where you talk about the building. That's where you talk about the thunderclouds. That's where you talk about the driving rain or whatever it might be. Okay, that's where you talk about the weak moonlight. All right, so here is where you use all your similes, your metaphors, your lovely adjectives, and really think carefully about how you're going to create that mood. In the third paragraph, you're going to focus on one detail of that setting. Now, it might be you choose an aspect of the building. It might be that you choose an aspect of the setting outside. It might be you describe the trees. Maybe you used to play under it when you were a child and it looks different now. Okay? In paragraph 4, you are going to move towards or away from something. All right, so in our final paragraph, we're going to have an element of movement. Now, it might be that you enter the building. Maybe that's your final paragraph. Or it might be that you turn around and leave. Okay, maybe you get there and decide you can't do it after all and you turn and leave, and that would change the mood altogether. All right, so you have got 3 minutes now. Pause your video and plan in bullet points what's going to go in your 4 paragraphs. Off you go, gents. Okay, what I wanted to show you before you get started by yourself, I just wanted you to have a little bit of a look at a sample opening, because we talked a little bit on the last slide about showing me something rather than telling me. So I wanted to give you an example, okay? So have a look and follow the paragraph as I read it. Looming over me, the menacing building watched me closely. The numerous dark windows resembled eyes, and I felt like each one was scrutinizing my every move. There was nothing I wanted to do less than venture into that derelict relic of times past. I gripped the locket tightly in my hand, reminded myself why I was here. Today was the day I would get some answers. Answers about the mysterious owner, answers about the past, but most of all, answers about myself. And this desolate, forbidding place might just be able to provide them. The wind howled through the gaping holes in the roof, and I pulled my coat tighter around me. Furtively, I looked around and then made a dash for the door. Okay, so that was my opening paragraph. What I've done there is I've suggested to you reasons why I'm there, but I haven't told you because I want you guessing. I want you intrigued and I want you thinking, all right? I gripped the locket tightly in my hand and reminded myself why I was here. I haven't told you why I am there. I haven't told you who I am, okay? But I feel nervous, I feel unsure. So you're starting to guess, you're starting to piece clues together and think about who I might be. Okay, you can see in there, I've got some of that vocabulary that we were using from the beginning of the video, and I've also got in there a bang sentence. So I've got some of those aspects. If you look up at the top, there's a little box with 4 elements in it, and they are what I want you to include in your piece of writing. Okay, the first one is you're going to include a bang sentence in there somewhere. You can see mine. Today was the day I would get some answers, colon. Answers about the mysterious owner, answers about the past, but most of all answers about myself. I also want you to include some Gothic vocabulary from our list. You're also going to include those plot elements that you picked yourself, all right? So whichever character you are, whatever time of day or weather it is, and maybe if you can, your object. So mine was the locket, so I've got that in there. And I'm also going to follow that 4-paragraph structure. So I've got my thoughts and feelings in the opening, then I've got the weather in the background, then I've got my zooming in on one element, so it might be the building itself, or it might be the bats, or whatever. And then in the last one, I'm going to move towards the building, or I'm going to leave, or somebody's going to come out of the building, whatever it might be. Something's moving. Somebody's moving towards or away from something. Okay. Right, gentlemen, it's over to you. Off you go, having a... with those 4 paragraphs, use your checklist. Make sure you keep hold of these pieces of writing, because somebody will definitely want to have a look at them when you make it back to school, which is hopefully really, really soon. Okay, gentlemen, it's been lovely spending 20 minutes with you. I hope your pieces of writing are fantastic. I would love to read some of them. And hopefully, like I said, we will see you all soon.